I love the mask.
I know, she's so cute. She's like,
she's stressed right now.
welcome. Perfect intro. I love it.
It is. And so today we're going to be talking about stress, because I can tell you it's like it's up a notch. Normally, you're talking to your friends or your family and you're like, yeah, I'm stressed. But I can tell you, ladies, that I have been feeling it. It's like the most dominant sensation in my body. I feel like my fight or flight or freeze system is on all the time. And so I'm so conscious of it. And that's why I brought it up as a topic, because I was having a chat with my girlfriend yesterday. We went for a hike and the sun was shining. Like, it's this beautiful, glorious day. And she's like, like, that was the conversation, because we're so stressed. She's dealing with stuff, like I'm dealing with stuff. We're all dealing with stuff. And so I thought, why don't we talk about this topic? Because yes, there's good stress and bad stress, but it all sort of adds up. If you can't manage it along the way, then you end up in crisis mode. And I feel like that's where I've ended up. So let's talk.
Oh my goodness.
Sometimes I feel as if we have this like unknown contract that we get bombarded with everything all at once, and we just have to face it head on. It's like fast and furious, and then we can work through it. And other people, and other times in our life, it just kind of ebbs and flows, peaks and waves. And I agree. I feel like right now in the world, people are feeling the stress at a higher degree, myself included, because once you start to have like a personal stress, like I just had a health issue. I have a family member with a health issue, potential job changes, kids might have troubles, and parents that are aging, and just a whole gamut of it. And then you can think of financial, and you can think of business, and like, can you just feel it building up? And I know for me, I actually need people to kind of help me identify that I am stressed. And that usually comes through a sister or a girlfriend. They'll be like, hey, I haven't heard from you as much, or hey, you seem a little too busy. Are you doing okay? And then I can kind of stop and pause and try to determine what of this stress have I brought on myself, and what am I taking on that isn't mine, and how can I get through it? Through definitely feeling the stress with you, Kasha.
Same here. So much going on right now, right? I think too that we need to recognize that there's good stress and there's bad stress, but when it's all coming at you, it all sort of feels the same. So you get like this tightness in your body, and you feel weighed down, and you can't breathe, and you can't pause, and you can't think, and then you're forgetting things, and it makes it worse, right? And even when it's good stress, because I had this so bad when I was planning my wedding. And I like what you said, because my friend had to totally call me on it. And I was like, I'm not stressed out. I'm excited, right? So,
Right, Dilla.
I was so stressed out. And I think that we have a harder time recognizing it when things are good. So even you could be in the sunshine enjoying your day, but you're super stressed and you may not notice, right?
It's so true, because here at home, it's good stress along with some other things, like Kim was saying, behind the scenes. Once you throw in finances and all that other stuff. But my son, we're getting him ready to sign him up for college, but he's only a junior in high school. So he's like on that fast track for college. So we were doing that behind the scenes. This week is his junior prom. So we had to go for tuxedos and stuff last week. So a lot of those things on top of our normal things that we stress about on our own every day, those things start to add up. And I'm noticing a pattern now that I become aware of when I'm hitting that peak of, like Kasha said, where you crash and you burn. I notice when my lower back starts to bother me, or if I feel triggered with everything, or a headache. Like I try and like be aware of where I know I'm going to get before I hit, like put that brake pedal on before I hit that brick wall, of where I'm feeling it, so I can stop and be like, okay, now I need to just find a way to just start letting all of that stuff and letting go. Because if not, like Kasha said, you'll crash and burn, and before you know it, you're like to the point of no return.
And I like what you said, Kim, about, there's definitely ebbs and flows in life, but do you think sometimes we don't notice the stress, or we don't catch on to it as quickly because our self-care goes down? Like, I know when I get busy, and whether it's good busy or just busy, I'm always the first one to fall off my own list.
Yeah.
So I'm either staying up later, or perhaps I'm not eating as well because I don't have as much time to prep things. Exercise, like, I have to go because I don't have makeup classes at my dojo where I do karate. So like, that's a really good thing for me. But all this other stuff compounds. And then before I know it, I'm in crisis mode because of that self-care. Obviously sometimes things happen in, more, what's the word, like sequentially closer together in life, but that's where the self-care suffers for me anyway.
I do think that stress builds up, or the feeling of stress builds up more when we are not filled up ourselves. Because if we're kind of in balance, it seems like then we can kind of process things as they come. But even if we are filled all the way up and we've been bombarded, you're still going to feel a little out of balance. But I think that's like you mentioning, Kasha, that like there's certain things that you are still making priorities for that kind of keeps you from going over the edge.
Yeah.
So I applaud you for that. That's for sure.
But that's good awareness.
I like the fact that Eva was talking about good stress, because I was sitting there for a moment thinking, what is good stress? And then I realized that like some of those are actually like celebrations or life experiences, and maybe we're categorizing them in a stressful way, but they could actually be reframed into more of a celebration or a transition or an achievement that come with a little bit more time involvement than we were anticipating. Because it seems like oftentimes some of the stressful things are occupying more of our time or our mind than when we were anticipating in any given day or week, do you think?
Yeah. That's so true. That's so true. You think something simple as to get your child ready for prom, that's almost like trying to plan a wedding, because you got to think, like today he's telling me, like, Mom, we have to go to the florist to get her flower. I'm like, oh my God, that's right. He has to get her a corsage. Like all these like pieces that you forget because you're like, oh, rent the tux and he's done. No, it's the tux. He has to have the right shoes. And if the socks don't match the shoes, it's like, wow, it's like a process. But it's fun along the way. But like exactly like Kim hit, it's the timeline and the time management, and then putting all of that into your normal everyday things that we're not normally planning proms, or like Shelly said when she was planning her wedding. These are not things that happen every day, but they are celebrations, like Kim said. You just have to look at it that way. But it's like, it's amazing.
So how do you ladies get triggered? How do you know that you need to take that time for yourself? Like, what is it that tells you that when you don't have a friend that can call you on it or something? Is there something in your body that you feel, or what screams at you, hey lady, you're stressed out, you need a break?
My lower back. For me, it's my lower back, and I catch myself being short-tempered. Like everything sets me off. Everything triggers me. And then I'll catch myself and I'll be like, oh my God, like, why am I so annoyed? And it's because then I ask myself, what do I need right now in order to bring myself down? Like, to talk myself off the edge of like jumping into like this whirlwind of like overwhelm. And a lot of times it's just, I need to sit down. I need to just take a breath. I need to just maybe have a cup of tea, or like have my cup of coffee while it's hot, that I didn't have to reheat it 5 times in the microwave.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like Eva. I tend to get a little bit short with my words, and I tend to pull away from people. So like I tend not to answer phone calls because I know I'm like, oh, I just don't have time for one more thing. And I'm like somebody that always answers the phone. You know what I mean? So like I catch myself, like if someone's like, something wrong by your voice, I know I'm being cranky. So for me, it's crankiness. My physical ailments have been pretty, like physical sensations have been pretty good. But I think when I'm talking about my voice and my throat, I think oftentimes the stress kind of piles up, and I almost feel like it settles in that throat chakra for me because I can't express the way I want things to turn quick enough, or I feel like my voice isn't being heard. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's my physical ailment, is my throat, where I get a little testy. Did I just admit that on a podcast?
Yes.
Permission granted to be testy, guys.
Exactly. We've all aired our dirty laundry on our triggers.
But it's true, the crankiness, I tend to get really emotional, and then if I'm like too emotional and I can't handle it, then I just numb. I try to shut down. And I don't use substances or anything like that. It's more of just like an internal withdrawal into myself. That's where my introvertedness comes out even more, because I don't want to be around people. I don't want to be around my family. I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, everyone, I'm grumpy, just so you know. It's not about you.
Yeah.
So at least I'm mature enough to tell them now. But yeah, it's just mainly withdrawing. And then physically, it's just this feeling of like, it's not that my heart races, but it just feels like my blood is just running through my body the whole time. And it's like this, where you ran, let's say, for a really long time, and you're trying to catch your breath and your body's sort of like vibrating. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, definitely. For me, I actually, I don't breathe. I don't breathe properly. I breathe very shallowly. And then something, my mala helps. So if I feel it swing, it'll remind me to breathe. And then when I breathe deep, I can feel it almost like the air hasn't touched that part in so long it hurts. And then I'm like, oh, what am I stressed out about? Because I haven't been breathing. So that's my physical trigger. And then of course my son always tells me, I can always tell when I'm being stressed out or snippy, because he will say, Mom, would you like to cuddle on the couch? Because he knows I need my mouth.
My son's the same way too. He'll look at me, he's like, Mom, do you need a hug? Like, and then he just comes up to me, he's like, it's okay, Mom, it's okay. He's like, take a deep breath, Mom, take a deep breath. So I love it how our family members know us as well, where they can see the shift in our personality and how we carry ourselves, to know that something, not necessarily wrong in a bad way, but that we're off on how we show up.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have to admit, like in the last couple of weeks, I've had to be a little bit vulnerable with you guys as kind of my soul sister tribe, because I couldn't actually follow through on things that I wanted to follow through on because of a lot of compounding situations that were stressful unexpectedly. And typically, as a woman, or maybe you guys agree too, and our audience, as women, we try to always hold true to our commitments. And I talk about loving my soul self and taking care of myself first. But, I still showed up to work when I knew I had a kidney stone. I didn't go in until my shift was over, when I could have called it. You know what I mean? Like, you still find yourself in those situations where you're like, would I do that the same next time or not? And then following through with your commitments, like, what is really the most important? You know what I mean? Like, I don't like to rank things, but I just like to figure out energetically, like, do I have the capacity to show up for how I need to show up? And if I can't, then I just have to resolve that I have to be vulnerable enough to say I can't do it, And I think if you have a good support system around you, or at least one person, it really helps you get through stressful periods of time, don't you?
I agree. And people understand more than we think they do. I often worry about what will they think, or, oh my gosh, I'm being so irresponsible. And yet that compassion is, like you said, Kim, if you have the right people around you, the compassion that they extend you and the support and the offers of help, whether or not you actually take it is a different story, but we understand,
and sometimes
that means so much.
Yeah, and sometimes help for us is just being able, like Kim said, to have someone that you can just voice like, kind of let the air out of like your lungs and be like, oh my God, this is happening. But and then know that you can continue to go on. Sometimes just being able to let that out and just admit and have that awareness that you are overwhelmed, that you're feeling a certain way. And like Kim said, where you know your capacity for certain commitments are just not there. Sometimes you just need someone to not validate you, but to hear you.
Yes.
To feel supported, that's important too.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we sort of put this idea on ourselves. We know that everyone else can take breaks, and that, we don't have these high expectations of everyone else to always come through and always show up and everything, but we don't allow ourselves that space to say, okay, I can't be there today. I have to take a break, right? And we always feel like we're letting the world down, right? It's the end of the world if we have to ask for that space, and it really isn't. So it's wonderful to have that support and to realize that when we do get in that vulnerable space and say, okay, I need a minute, and go up and say it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. What tips do you ladies have that we could share with our audience? Because I'm sure our audience is, many of them are in the same boat, or maybe more rocky boats, or maybe a little less rocky. But what is your go-to remedy for when you notice that you're stressed or someone calls you out on it?
For me, I'll immediately stop and ask myself, what do I need right now? Like, I want to go and soothe myself and get to the point where I'm not feeling so overwhelmed, so I can bring myself down from like that high of being stressed, so then I can start thinking rationally and not thinking from that space of like, being in despair or just like totally spinning my wheels. I'll try and find something wherever I am. I can be in the store, I can be in my car. I'll try and find something that I can soothe myself. Sometimes even just closing my eyes and, like Shelly said, remembering that even though our body breathes for us, we still have to remember to breathe on our own for ourselves. So that's what I turn to, asking myself how I can soothe myself.
Yeah. For me, I think, it's really about discovering what is your trigger, what is that thing that makes, like, what are you feeling? And when you feel that, once you know that, then you can trigger yourself to check in with it. So for me, I wear my mala. It swings, it smashes into things. I wear it every day. It's, kind of a piece, but you can also wear bracelets and stuff, right? Every time you feel them or hear them on the desk or whatever it is, you can think, I need to check in with my body. How am I feeling? Right? So that's mine.
Yeah, I think I tend to pause and sit for a few moments and see if there's a way that I could re-look at the situation and ask for help. And I think for me, it's that expression, whether it's just verbal out loud to myself or if it's to someone else, like, yes, I can do this. No, I can't do this. Can you help me? I need help. Or no, you're not thinking rational, Kim. So just step back a moment and pause and re-look at all the situation. So for me, it's voicing things out loud and determining what I need from there.
Yeah, for me, definitely, I agree with that. The verbal processing with someone who I trust is huge for me. Even if I don't usually want them to fix it or give me solutions or whatever, because I tend to get there on my own. I just need them to hold the space and listen to me. And often, like, I tend to get stuck in my head a lot. So they'll be like, hey, you're stuck in your head. Have you thought about this way? And then that gets me out, and then I can go back to rational thinking or the breathing or whatever. But it's that when I'm stressed, I get wrapped up in a knot. And so someone to just hold that space for me to unravel and then go from there. And of course, making sure I get enough sleep, making sure I'm eating extra clean, I'm drinking more water, right? Taking like my vitamin Bs and all that stuff, because then when you're stressed, your physical body needs more support. And so if we can catch that mental moment of stress and deal with it that way, and then remember that actually this container that we live in also needs it, then between those two approaches, the stress usually can be managed a lot faster. Yeah,
definitely.
Cool. Are we ready for permission slips?
Yes.
Ooh, okay. Permission granted. Let your voice be heard during stressful situations.
Love it.
Permission granted. Go, Shelly.
Permission granted to take a time out. Cuddle on the couch, go for a walk, whatever that is for you. Take a time out.
Permission granted to stop, drop, and breathe. Remember to breathe while you're in the muck of it, that you're going to be okay. But to stop, drop, and breathe should be your first permission granted, and then move forward.
Permission granted to ask for help and receive it. It's one thing to ask, but actually allow yourself to receive it, because you're never alone in this, and there's always someone willing to hold the space for you or help you. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Permission Granted podcast. Remember to subscribe below and share the word. Let your girlfriends know, your friends, whoever needs to hear the messages and hear these conversations, because we talk about real things. As you can see, this is not scripted. This is simply life-based, and we share our expertise through these personal stories, personal examples, and vulnerabilities so that we can help you the best we can. And we'll see you on the next episode.